IEnumerable is an interface that is in the system collections namespace that represents a forward-only cursor of T. All elements of a collection that implements IEnumerable are loaded into memory, and operations such as filter, group, join are performed in memory. It works well for querying data from in-memory collections like list, array, etc. The extension methods in the enumerable class are executed in memory and return their results as an in-memory collection. IEnumerable represents a forward-only cursor. What does this mean exactly? This means that you can only iterate through the collection in one direction, forward, and you can't go back to previous items without starting the iteration again from the start. IEnumerable allows you to iterate through a collection of items in a forward-only manner, so you can use a for each loop or manually use the enumerator's moveNext method to proceed through the collection. But there isn't a built-in way to move backwards through the collection or to jump to a specific item by index. Let's take a look at a basic example of how to use IEnumerable. Here we declare and instantiate a list_int object that contains 5 integers. We are assigning this list to a variable numbers of type IEnumerable_int. This works because list_t implements IEnumerable_t. Next, we use for each loop to iterate over the collection. This loop will execute once for each element in the numbers collection, and here we simply print the number to the console. This code will output the numbers 1 to 5, each on a separate line. Now let's discuss IQueryable. This interface is in the system link namespace and is suitable for querying data from out of memory, like remote database service collections. It is a more powerful tool for querying collections because it uses expression trees to build up a query that can be executed against different types of data sources, and it is executed against the data source directly. It has deferred execution and supports lazy loading. IQueryable allows you to build up complex queries against a data source, like a database, without loading the data into memory. Only the required data is fetched. Now let's take a look at an example. I start by defining a context for our database named MyDBContext and a database setBook. This represents our books table in the database. Each book object will have properties like an ID, title, and a published year. Then I instantiate the MyDBContext class to create an object called context. This context acts as my session with the database, enabling me to query and save instances of the book entities. Next, I use the IQueryable interface to create a query against the database. I create a variable called books that represents a query, which is not executed right away. IQueryable prepares the query and only executes it against the database when it's necessary. This query I prepare using the where method, which is a filter method used to select books from the database where the published year is greater than 2000. So essentially, I'm setting up a query to fetch books that were published after the year 2000. Remember, this query is not immediately executed. This is known as deferred execution. The actual execution happens when I try to enumerate over the books variable, perhaps with a for each loop or a method that forces the query's execution. This way, I can efficiently work with a large volume of data, as the entire dataset is not loaded into memory, and the database interaction is deferred to the latest possible point. And to summarize, IEnumerable is used for iterating through a collection in memory, executing select queries on the server, and then it loads the data in memory on the client side before filtering. On the other hand, IQueryable allows for out-of-memory manipulation and filtration of data, constructing a query through link operations, and then executing the best possible SQL on the server side, thus being more efficient for larger datasets. Hopefully, this video helped you understand how IEnumerable and IQueryable are used. If you want to test your C# knowledge, feel free to visit our website codeprepping.com, where we have hundreds of interview questions with answers. Thank you for watching.